When you partner with AXON, you immediately gain access to a full range of products and solutions designed to meet the complex needs of today's grower. We carry all major brands and sizes of tires and wheels. We specialize in large diameter wheels for large equipment. We have one of the largest OEM replacement wheel inventories in North America. Known for extreme flotation setups, duals, and triples, we have wheels for all makes and models of tractors, sprayers, combines, and grain carts. If we don't have the wheel in stock, we'll custom build, sandblast, and paint in-house. There isn't a more vast inventory in North America dedicated to helping dealers move more iron. With facilities on the West Coast and in the heart of the Midwest, leverage our 230,000 square feet of indoor inventory to solve any problem a grower may have. Move more iron with AXON.
Moving iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast Markets with Chip Nellinger. Chip Nellinger is with Blue Reef Agri Marketing out of Morton, Illinois. He's nice enough to come on and talk about what's happening in the marketplace. So Chip, how you doing, bud?
Hey, doing well, Casey. We're finally talking on a day there's some green on the screen, so it's been pretty depressing, but we caught a good day, I guess, to chat.
Yep. So we had the Kansas Wheat Quality Tour. Ended up yesterday getting everything kind of shut down and come back with their final results, and it is ranking as one of the worst crops, projected to be one of the worst crops ever in the state of Kansas. 1963 was the last time that they had a projection of this bad. Right now they have projected to be somewhere a statewide average of around 30 bushels an acre, which is about 15 bushels an acre off of the average, the 5-year average. So not a big shocker there. We've been talking about this for a while. I don't know if we thought it was going to be this bad, but it is. It's ranking up there as a, I guess, one of the people I've talked to and talking with you and everything else, that is kind of what we thought was going to happen. And maybe, is it worse than we thought? Maybe, but more than likely, it's pretty much right in par with what we saw. So I guess, Chip, your reaction to that, to the wheat tour?
Yeah, and just right on cue, the wheat market, it marches to the beat of its own drummer, and we got that confirmation and kind of buy the rumor, sell the fact. And wheat just has a huge puke led by the Kansas City market. So I'm not sure that it's done going up, but it had about $1.80 run straight up, literally straight up in the Kansas City contract. And so we got that information, 30 bushel or state yield, probably confirming one of the worst crops, like you mentioned. I think the thing that snuck out of that, though, is not only the yield, but there was some comments about potentially abandoned acres. So a lot of those fields they pegged at like 5 bushels, 4 bushels. And so will farmers even harvest that? Can they even harvest it? Some of the plants are so small. And so there's going to be some abandonment. I think one of the numbers I saw was potentially up to like 22, 23% of the acreage. And so not only is it poor yield, but what's the total crop size going to be if there's a bunch of, unharvested fields out there? And so it could end up being even worse than expected if there's a large abandonment out there. We'll have to wait, a few weeks to kind of figure out what that may or may not be. But nonetheless, a poor crop, I think it kind of solidified in everyone's minds, that rally in the Kansas City contract was probably warranted. And a lot of people trying to call a top in here on it, on the most bullish news. I don't know. We haven't even harvested yet, and there's going to be an issue getting, high protein, high quality wheat. And so, it keeps corn in the mix. It's something that's friendly, I think, and I still wouldn't be shocked. I've said it for a while that you don't have to put a 10 in front of Kansas City wheat for a little while before it's said and done to kind of get the most bullish news digested and get the demand rationed out of that thing. So we'll see. It's a crazy volatile market. Certainly you wouldn't have expected a 60-cent break in wheat prices off of, one of the most bullish news items we've seen in a long, long time. But it came in about as expected, I think, and it was well anticipated. And now it's about, let's get it harvested. Let's figure out what it really is yielding and how much abandoned acres there's going to be out there. It doesn't stop at the Kansas Oklahoma line. It goes all into Oklahoma and into the panhandle of Texas too. So there's some awful rough looking wheat fields out there this year.
Yep. I was reading an article about the Oklahoma tour, and it was off about the same amount as the Kansas was. They were, I want to say something like they were 44.9 or 49.4. Can't remember exactly what it was, bushels per acre, but that was off about 10 or 15 bushels per acre on the 5-year average too. And same in the Texas Panhandle as well, in West Texas down there where they're growing some wheat. So it's going to be a rough year for wheat for sure. And when you're looking at the total bushels that are out there, and we're already on the supply side, we're pretty low. And look at some places like Russia and over there as well, where they're off. I think, aren't they off something like 25% or something like that along those lines as what they were the previous year? So a lot of moving parts here. And the Black Sea corridor deal came through the other day. I kind of threw some cold water on the market as well. So geopolitically looking at this, with the Erdogan presidential runoff in Turkey, and that's kind of, I guess, everything I read, that's kind of this glue that's holding that thing together. If that doesn't work out for him and in Turkey, there could be this could be the last 2 months of the Black Sea corridor as have a friendly place to go, I guess, when you start looking at how that has been negotiated. You really kind of setting this up like you talked about last time we talked. This is really kind of starting to set up that there could be a pretty explosive upward movement in wheat just because of all the outside factors and geopolitical stuff going on.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the bigger things is that the Southern Plains in the United States pretty well publicized now, but Canadian prairies have been very dry. I think they have got a little bit of rain, some rain in the forecast. It just wouldn't take much of a flare up in Canada, in Russia, in China with their growing crop, and you've got a much different scenario. The corn and the bean market acting like we just have record, yields.
Yeah.
The May crop report probably set the stage for that, but it's just, you can write anything on paper, right? 181.5 bushel national average yield in corn and 52 bushels in beans. That's great to write it on paper, and it's probably possible. But we've never done that before. Our best crop ever in corn was about 3 bushels under what's on paper right now. But the market, didn't take much time to shed a lot of length. The funds were massive sellers in corn, massive sellers in beans. We pushed this market down to a level that arguably probably is where we should be if we have a 2.2 billion bushel corn crop and a 350 plus million bushel bean carry out, but we're not there yet. We don't even have it all in the ground yet planted. So to your point, Casey, it just wouldn't take much of a flare up anywhere in the world or here this summer during the growing season. And we're going to scream these prices back higher and just, kind of rip people's faces off with this volatility. Wheat has been an example of that, $1.80 straight up, snap of a finger, 60-cent break in less than 2 days.
Yeah.
And we're not done yet. And so this thing's going to get to be a bumpy carnival ride, and people probably before it's said and done are going to be screaming, let me off of this ride. And if they're not already, right, the downside volatility in corn and beans has been pretty gut wrenching. And but to your point, it just takes a tiny little spark somewhere in the world over the next few months, and we've got a much different scenario out there.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see and watch, especially when it came to the Black Sea thing, because when the Ukrainian Russian war kicked off, the expectation of wheat coming out of the Black Sea was zero, and it never was zero. They'd had plenty of cargoes coming in and out of there. But if they did shut it down, say, hey, we can no longer, there's no longer a corridor here, and Russia sinks one cargo ship someplace, all of a sudden the whole world is going crazy, and the price of wheat's through the roof. So and everything, corn and beans too. I mean, it wouldn't take much to make that whole thing happen. So interesting.
Exactly. And
coming up.
I think the whole Black Sea thing is, benefits Russia more than it almost benefits Ukraine. At this stage, what isn't talked about a lot either with Ukraine is when the war started a year and a half ago, they had a lot of old crop supplies. And so that is not a never ending supply. And then they planted half as much acreage as the previous year. And now they're going to plant this spring half as much as the previous year, which was half a crop to begin. So at a certain point here in the very near future, it doesn't matter if it's wide open, they're not going to have anything to export anyway, because they didn't plant anything.
Right.
And I think that's a little bit lost on the world right now, that, the Black Sea's open, the Black Sea's closed, the Black Sea's open, the Black Sea's closed. When it comes to Ukraine, it's not going to matter here in a few months, because they don't have anything, because they didn't get it planted.
Yep.
And I think that's something that the market is a little bit short-sighted on as well.
Yeah, that's I've had that conversation with a couple folks, and they're like, "Oh, well, the Black Sea thing's open." I'm like, well, that's great, man. Open up your store; it's great. If you have nothing to sell, you're not making any money. So
exactly. It does allow Russia to get some stuff out.
Sure. Yeah.
Sneak some wheat out, sneak some crude oil out. But at a certain point, I think the world is like hanging on all this supply from Ukraine, and I would say it's dwindling rapidly, and it's not going to get rebuilt anytime soon.
Yeah, they're looking at, last thing I saw, they're going to have, I mean, it's been in the news too, and that's the other part of it that I don't understand why it hasn't picked up either, because the last two articles I read that were out, I think I read an article last week, and then I read an article like Monday morning about world supply and those kind of things. And they were talking like, Ukraine's going to have 25 to 30% of what they had 2 years ago when the war kicked off. And I'm like, wow, that's a big number when you start really thinking about how much grain's not going to show up out of that area. So it'll be these next couple of months are just going to be in a very pivotal time, with the way the markets play out and what they see happen. So it's going to be an interesting time for sure.
To say the least.
All right, Chip, jump over and talk a little bit about what's happening over the protein markets right now. You've seen hogs have a pretty good week. On the cutout side, though, we've seen some pressure come off of the cutouts there, and you're starting to see some of those prices come down a little bit. You look at feeder cattle, you look at live cattle, and they're just their prices are there. You saw a pretty good run up here earlier in the week, or I guess the last couple of days, with the price of corn. That over this week, how the price of corn has taken that hit. You've seen some movement on the livestock sector, especially on the cattle side too. So, Chip, talk about what you see happening there, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the cattle side, they've tried to break live cattle several times over the last week or 10 days, and not much success. Every time they do, even intraday, the market comes roaring back. We've had this huge sell-off in corn that's rocketed the feeder cattle market higher. And so there's some spread relationship there too, right? That, as these deferred feeders just scream higher, you've got what the August contract in the mid 230s. It was up over $3 yesterday on the feeders. And so, to a certain extent, that's going to drive your live cattle contract higher as well, or you're going to get this thing out of whack where it makes no money to feed cattle. And that's the opposite that we kind of need to, opposite signal that we kind of need to send to the industry right now, because of all this liquidation that we've seen because of the drought. And so now it's going to get exaggerated, right? When there's been some rain around, and we're going to start retaining heifers and tightening up that supply. So a lot of spread relationships there going on. So a lot of spread activity between live cattle and lean hogs as well. That's out to, if it's not the widest spread it's ever been with cattle over hogs, it's very close. So there's a lot of volume and speculative money in that in that trade as well. But the cattle complex to me looks like it's on good footing. And the break should be temporary. You're coming in here the next couple of weeks to where we normally have our seasonal low in cash and cutout. The cutout started to rally just a little bit, and the cash hasn't even really broke much. And so, you know, as you get deeper into summer here, I think things look fairly good. You're always going to be fighting, you know, the economy, and can the consumer afford the high price beef? Are jobs going to slow down? Are we going into recession? You're always going to fight that. But so far, it looks like the beef market has held up pretty well in the face of these higher prices. It's about the exact opposite in hogs, unfortunately. Just can't seem to get much going. It's getting to the time on the calendar where we normally see some higher prices into summer. But something that's holding us back is this big premium that the deferred contracts have to where the lean index and the cash market is. And, you know, we've tried to rally a couple times, and then it just gets sold again because the premium's too big. So we just, unfortunately, I think we need to get some more time off the calendar. When you turn it to June, we should start seeing cash and cutout slowly increase. There's a lot of nervousness now around this Proposition 12, I think it is, in California. I am certainly not smart enough to make you know, an educated guess on what that means, but in a very short run, because the industry in the rest of the country outside of California isn't compliant yet, there's some fear that in the very short run it could lead to some sow liquidation. I don't know if you see that or not. I don't know how this will shake out. You know, it seems like the inmates are running the asylum, but it's not leaving the hog industry right now with a very cozy feeling. Whether that's warranted or not, I don't know. But that's, I think, part of what's holding back, you know, these rallies that we've seen. We've seen several attempts for hogs to rally, and you know, you think, okay, they're up $2, they're up $3. It's you start of a rally, and then they give it all back in 24 hours. So I think there's a lot of things that work there, but hopefully we get to June and July, we should start seeing some better things, and supplies tighten up, and a better chance for a rally. If we don't by mid-June, we've got much bigger problems in the hog market. So that's probably something, unfortunately, to watch out for. We can't get a rally generated by, you know, mid-June, third week in June. You gotta scratch your head and say, is it going to come at all this year?
Yeah, that Proposition 12 in California is kind of a big deal. They tried to pass something similar to that in California or Colorado here a couple of years ago, not to that extent where, you know, basically Colorado is kind of just paraphrasing here a little bit, but it was basically for every animal that you had, cow or whatever it was, you had to have indoor space for all those animals. So if you had 10,000 cows, you need to have a space for 10,000 cows inside of a building somewhere. This Prop 12 thing is kind of a big deal, because if they don't follow the compliance, then you can't sell your product, and that's a big deal. I mean, if they fall outside of whatever the things are, and you can't sell your cows, you can't sell your pigs, you can't sell your chickens, and that's a big deal. So
it's a very big deal. And head scratcher, you know, we could do a whole podcast on the insanity that is spilling over the world from a lot of different energy and food policy standpoints, and the reasoning behind it. But it's a strange time. You know, you scratch your head and say, well, this is not rational. Nobody could pass that. It doesn't even make sense. And it passes, you know.
Yeah.
And it's on purpose, and somehow they get this stuff done. So it hasn't created enough anger yet, and common sense to stop it. But hopefully it does soon.
Yep. Right on. All right, Chip, good place to stop there. But if folks want to reach out to you and get more information about what you're doing over at Blue Reef Ag Marketing, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, best way is just call our office, 309-550-7213. I would imagine maybe the phone might ring for some California area codes maybe after that tirade. But you can reach out, call us, yell at me because you don't agree, talk to us about how you might be able to improve your risk management plan and the execution of that, we'd be happy to chat with you.
Right on, Chip. But Chip, I appreciate you taking time to be on the podcast, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always fun.
Right on. I'm Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Moving Iron LLC, LinkedIn at Moving Iron Podcast. Check out the video version of this over at the YouTube channel, which is the Moving Iron Podcast YouTube channel. Go to MovingIronLLC.com for everything Moving Iron related and get all the information from the Moving Iron Summit coming up here in Nashville, Tennessee, September 11th through the 13th. All the information is there. If you need more information, send me an email at MovingIronPodcast at MovingIronPodcast.com, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour with Chip Nellinger. Let's go do some iron, folks. Out.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving iron time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving